up, familia? All right, let's get it going. I want to take a moment because one of the things that I love to do is build community, build space, and build moments together. So I want you to take a moment, bring it in, put your phones down, put whatever you got down right now. Put your hand over your heart. Feel that heartbeat. Out of the probability in the universe, in the cosmos, and everything that's been spoken about today, we are here in this moment together, and that is love. And I also love to get the energy going, right? So we're going to start with a little union clap. Now, I'm a community organizer, and I love unionizing. Maybe not everybody agrees with that. But I want you to start with with following my clap, right? We're going to go 1, you go. Yeah, go. All right, when I say G, you say Lex. G, Lex, G, G, G. All right, yes. Let's get that energy going. I got to get it going for John, who's next. So I'm his warm-up act. But my name is Juan Martinez Pineda. Scarupe yado tu nalaya Juan. Chinje Alicia y Daniel. Chinje Isabel. Inya Istmo Tehuantepec, Oaxaca. Tehuantepec, Zapotec. Benedicta. Hey everyone, my name is Juan. I am the son of Daniel and Alicia. Alicia is the daughter of Isabel, who is descendant of the people of the Tehuantepec hills in Oaxaca, of the Benedicta, the Clout people. We're going to talk about a couple of things today. I love agendas, so I'm going to give you a peek preview of 3 key things to take away today: opportunity, legacy, and what's next. My opportunity, or the story of my opportunity, starts in a garden in South Central Los Angeles, where I grew up, where I called home. Now, as I love stories, so as I share my story, I want you to think about your story and where your connection to the nature and the outdoors happened for you too. This little garden is in the back of a high school called Dorsey High School, where I went to school. And I ended up in detention in high school. And in detention, they gave me an ultimatum that said, either you stay in detention and you know where this thing ends up, or you go to this thing called Eco Club. Now, I'm trying to be the cool guy on campus. I'm trying to do all that stuff. Eco Club was not in my future or my horizon for that. But much rather than face another lecture and chores from my parents, I decided to go to Eco Club. And in Eco Club, Ms. Glenda Pepin gave me a pack of seeds. And in this pack of seeds, I saw jalapenos. And I decided in that moment that I wanted to grow the best jalapenos ever, because I felt like everything I was doing in my life at that moment was wrong or causing pain to my family. And so then I opened up a book, and I learned about photosynthesis. And I learned about ancient irrigation methods of the Aztecs and the African tribes. And this whole world opened up of science that wasn't theoretical anymore. It was applied science here at home, close to me, that I could feel with my own hand. And I kept going to school day after day, taking care of these jalapenos. And at the end of that semester, I was able to take these jalapenos back home and show them to my mom. And my mom reminded me that this had always been part of who I was. This had always been part of my culture and my connection to my people back home, because these are the traditions and the indigenous knowledge that she had passed on to me. But I didn't recognize it at the moment because I just thought they were chores. On the weekends, she would break through concrete in South Central LA and bring back the lessons from Oaxaca and our people to that little community. And grow tomatoes and grow the herbs and the beans and the corn and the squash. To us, urban agriculture was never about urban hobbies. It was survival, because that's what we relied on when we didn't have any food nearby or couldn't afford it. And these lessons kept coming back to me. And I ended up with a scholarship to the Teton Science Schools in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, Grand Teton National Park, a tectonic event of the millennia. If you have ever been, have any of you ever been to Jackson Hole? Raise your hands. Yeah. First time away from home, first time on a bus, first time on a plane. We get there at night. The bus actually ended up breaking down 2 times before we got there, so we got there pretty late. And for the first time, I looked up at that sky, and 2 things came through me. One, how fresh the air was, and how piercing it was to feel that fresh air in the middle of those mountains. And then the second was the stars. For the first time in my life, at the age of 15, I saw more stars than I could count. At the age of 15, I saw more stars than I could count. And I fell in love. I fell in love with this mountain range, the free-flowing river, the songbirds, the beauty of it all. And I felt my heart and soul in this place. And I felt my heart and soul back at home in South Central LA. And in that moment, I decided that I was going to dedicate the rest of my life to figuring out how I could connect the two. How to connect more people who I believed could benefit from the healing power of nature. And I went on to do many more amazing things throughout my career. This is me on the way up to the Grand Teton almost a decade later, that same mountain range that I saw with a good friend and mentor, Conrad Anker. Now, Conrad Anker, to many of you, is a well-known name, and to many of you at home, but in case it's not, I like to describe him as the Michael Jordan of mountaineering. That's how I describe Conrad. I went on 2-man submersibles off the coast of the Catalina Island, searching for great white sharks and televising those search and computer readings out to schools throughout the LA area so that they too could one day earn the seat on that 2-man submersible. And I think about the indigenous knowledge. This is my grandma, 94 years old in July 14th, so soon. And family is the most important thing to me, right? So my mom, my wife, and my dad, this is our garden in the backyard in South Central LA. That nopal tree has been growing there since I was a kid growing up. And our 2 families together in LA. And we'll come back to the reason why family is important to me. One thing that I realized in nature was that nature did not judge me. Nature did not put a prejudice upon me. It did not ask me for my immigration status. It did not ask for how much money I had in my bank account. It did not ask what political affiliation I had. It just was and accepted me fully and completely for who I am. And believe me that the mosquitoes really don't care who you are, where you come from. They're going to take what they need from you. And that's where the idea about what's next kept coming, because I kept having these amazing adventures, but every time I I kept asking myself, what's next? What's next? What's next? And it's coincidental that that's the theme today. But for me, where I found purpose in that drive to make change was in answering this question with another question. And that's, who's next? Who is next after me? Who is next after you? Can you look back in your career and ask, who is the next generation of stewards, of scientists, of change makers? And are you doing everything possible to make sure that that's happening? And that's what I try to answer through our project called Fresh Tracks. Fresh Tracks is a youth-led revolution that centers the healing power of culture and nature for civic action. We believe that those closest to the pain must also be closest to the power to change and heal. We know that youth and communities of color across the country are severely and disproportionately impacted by systems like foster care and juvenile justice. This isn't just a US-centric idea. It is a global idea, as I'm sure many of you can attest to. And too often, these systems of inequality are driven and limit opportunity for young people. We believe that systems of inequity rely on the disengagement and separation of communities for change. And they rely on that belief that we are more different than we are alike, that we have more differences than similarities, than universal truths. And so we bring together young people from all over the country and all over the world to experience time shared in space together, to address the most pressing issues of their time. And those range from climate change to youth suicide, to gun violence, to access to equitable health care. But I'll tell you what happens, the most powerful part of that is when we bring young people together. Waylon is from Arctic Village, right there on the left. Devin is from Boston, Massachusetts. Devin grew up in Boston. He's worried about black men being murdered in his community. Waylon lives in Arctic Village, and he is worried about the porcupine herd and biodiversity and the life of his people at the edge of Alaska and the Arctic. They have probably very few reasons to talk to each other about these issues, but they consider themselves family now. And when Devin goes back to Boston, he is talking about Arctic Village. And when Waylon goes back up to Arctic Village, who's now a bush pilot, by the way, he's talking about the injustice of black people being murdered and why Black Lives Matter. And we don't just have theoretics or ideas about this. We have hard evidence and hard science to back this up. Dr. Sharani Little, who I credit with being a mentor and a big advisor on this, created a whole system based on the University of Southern California's Executive Management MBA program. So executives from all over the world go to USC and take her classes, and she created a metric for us to evaluate the change that happens when these moments are created. 42% increased their willingness to participate in cross-cultural environments to create change. 40% increase in ability to work as a part of a community unit or team. 61% increase in understanding the concept of power dynamics as it relates to civic engagement. Both qualitative and quantitative data has proven this fact to be true. Now, imagine these numbers not just for the young people in our community, but imagine those numbers as those young people become decision makers and policy makers and business leaders in this community, in this world. In a world where we feel more separated than ever before. programs like the one I'm creating and more programs like the one that Asha has been leading forward and many other EC50 explorers here today are doing are what is needed to bring people together. Because Dr. King didn't say, I have a nightmare. He said, I have a dream. And he drew that dream for us and built us all in that dream, and he gave us space to create our own dream. So when you ask why I do it, that's why I do it. That's what's next for me. To make sure that the next generation of conservation stewards, the next generation of climate change scientists and leaders in our world are having all the tools available and access to privilege, access to resources that they have at their hands. I do it for family. My son is here. My wife, a rock star in her own right, National Park Ranger, is why I do it. Family to me is the most important thing in this life. And what I've come to understand is that family is both born into and chosen. And what I'm starting to realize about the Explorers Club 50 and the Explorers Club in general is that there's a lot of family to be had in this place, in this moment, right now. Family to me means those who stand in action with you, those who are willing to lock arms with you when the times get tough. And while we have some tough times here and now and ahead of us, the opportunity and the smile and the love and the family found in this room and at home and in this picture is what motivates me every single day to keep being that change and keep making things happen. And that is what's next to me. Thank you.